All right, hi guys. So just like we talked about just a second ago when we were looking at some of those artists, you're going to want to think about this week what kind of environment you want to choose to create for yourself. Is it a place that's really special to you? Is it somewhere in your home? Is it somewhere outside? Is it someplace from a trip you've taken? It could even be the interior of your car or the inside of a bus. Think about all the different forms and the feeling that you get from that environment, but all the different forms that are in that environment. So what furniture is inside? What does the lighting look like? What do all the colors in that environment look like? And sorry if you can hear my class next door. They are having a super good time in art. But I chose this week to draw a environment from a trip that I took to Italy. And when I went to this town, there was this big hill overlooking the ocean, and then there were all these houses on the hill. They were like tiny little houses. They were all really close together, and they were going all the way up this little mountain. And the fun thing about this town, and the thing that changed the environment about it for me, is not only were all of these little houses sort of geometrically stacked on this hill, so they're square shapes, they're geometric shapes, it's a house, and they were all stacked up on this hill, but what was beautiful about it was that all of the houses were painted these really beautiful, warm, and pastel colors. So for my artwork this week, I tried to choose some colors that reminded me of that environment. So that's the first thing that I'm using to try to capture the feeling of this environment that I want to talk about in my art, is using some colors that remind me of that environment. So I'm using a lot of these warm colors. I'm going to use a little bit of this blue for the ocean below. But another thing I tried to do is that you can see right here, I'm not drawing all those tiny little houses and trying to capture every little detail on them. In fact, I'm not really trying to capture any detail at all. What I did was I got the general shape of where I wanted all of these little houses to go, and then I just started drawing kind of crooked or wonky squares all along this hill. And then I'm going through one by one and I'm coloring them with all of my very warm colors. And I think I'm going to do that in the sky as well, because we talked about the fact that lighting can change the way a form looks. So if you have a really warm kind of sunset lighting over a city, it's going to change the way those buildings look and make them look even more pastel, even more warm. Then if you had a really rainy, overcast day, those houses might look a little bit cooler in color. It might change the way some of those forms look, because if it's cloudy or dark outside, you're going to have shadows cast beneath these buildings, and it's going to change the shape of that form. So I'm going through and I'm just going to color in all of these squares until I get something that I'm happy with, that sort of captures the feeling, captures all the forms in the environment that I want to talk about this week. So let's color all of this in. All right, so now that my picture is all colored in and I used my best craftsmanship, I didn't leave any white spaces in between my coloring, and I filled my whole paper really well, I wanted to show you guys the inspiration photo and talk one last time about some forms. So this is what I was talking about. This is where I visited. It's so beautiful. This is kind of around sunset time, so you can see the colors are really warm. There's lots of pinks and golds and yellows. The water is kind of this very dark, bright blue. And obviously I didn't use every single color in this photo in my drawing, but I was inspired by the feeling of some of those colors in the environment that I was trying to capture. I was also inspired by a lot of the shapes that you see in this picture. So yes, there are some very natural shapes of this cliffside, and the cliff going up has some green on it. But what I really wanted to focus on was all of these geometric shapes kind of stacked up on that hill right there. So you can see there's a lot of squares, rectangles. There's not very many like rounded or organic shapes in this picture except for the rocks on the cliff. So in my drawing, I was really trying to capture that. I was using a lot of just geometric shapes, so lots of squares, rectangles, some half circles to represent my sun. Even my water is kind of divided up into these geometric shapes because that's the form that I really wanted to capture in this environment. So we are so excited to see what environments you choose to create in your art this week. Again, as always, you can use a variety of materials. You could use markers like I did. You could use colored pencils, crayons, paint. You could collage, whatever you want to do to try to capture an environment that is special to you or that you feel connected to, and the forms that you want to represent in that environment. So maybe if I was going to do my bedroom at home, I would look around and I would say there's a lot of geometric shapes in here too. I have square picture frames on the wall. My bed is kind of a large rectangle. My nightstands are rectangles and my dressers are rectangles. So there's a lot of geometric shapes in that environment. And how am I going to capture the feeling of that bedroom in my work? So we're so excited to see what you create this week, and I hope you have fun creating forms and environments. Bye.